Hi, welcome to Avalon Priestess TV. My name is Damazel Fox, and I'm so excited you're here with me to talk about holding fear with love, the path of the Shadow Priestess. So, when we think about the priestess path, we're really often thinking about this path of someone who is called to walk with love and compassion in the world. I mean, there's that cool bit where we all wear super fancy robes and do this at the full moon and do all that ritual and beauty creating, but the essence of it is this magic of coming into full embodiment of our spiritual selves, or as full as we can be, and learning to walk from love in the world. And how does that relate to our shadow work? Well, the thing about priestessing and the thing about the world is that the world is hard. Life is hard, and I'm thinking it's not supposed to be easy. Otherwise, it would be, and everyone wouldn't find it such a tricky experience. And the role of priestesses in this is to be able to hold that love and compassion for all these tricky times and for this difficulty in the world. Priestesses are, so my definition of a priestess is somebody who is here to embody the divine feminine, to hold that divine feminine energy of love and compassion. And of course there are other divine femininity energies too. There's the energy of the challenger and of the initiator, and the energy of beauty and the energy of love and the energy of fierceness used in divine service. So we're using this divine energy of the goddess through our bodies, through our presence. That's what a priestess does. And we are also showing up to priestess, which in this context means to ceremonialize and make sacred the sacred transitions of life. And our culture doesn't really have a lot of ritual or ceremonial moments, right? We have birthdays, we have weddings, we have funerals. That's about it. Those are our big ceremonial events. And since wedding is the one big rite of passage that we really celebrate, we celebrate hard, and people go all out with weddings because that's the only rite of passage we're gonna get, right? Sometimes people get sweet 16s and stuff, but we don't have a lot of those sacred rites of passage in our culture. And the ones we do have are only on the happy end of things, right? But really, what we need in our world is we need people who are going to be there, and they're going to be able to priestess and hold sacred and hold space, which means to honor and give space for this to be truly felt and heard and realized and lived, to the more difficult moments in our life. When we are just learning how to get out of anxiety, when we are dealing with a loss, when we are grieving something that we don't quite understand yet, when we feel a deep sorrow in our body and we cannot figure out which bit of our life it comes from. Because living as a human is really complicated, and it's really, 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 really hard. And there is so much about being alive that isn't the happy stuff that our world accepts and wants. In fact, our world tends to encourage you, if you're feeling sad or if you're feeling anxious or depressed or in grief, to kind of work through it and it will solve it, and just hide it and don't let it be. So one part of the job of the priestess is to slow down and be present for those moments, to be the one who, and on the priestess path we always work with priestessing ourselves first. That's why in my Morgan le Fay Mystery School we have Sister Year, which is a journey of internal transformation, and the priestess arts we can use for our own priestess needs, because we need to do it for ourselves first before we can do it for others. And so on the priestess path, we are learning to make space and honor those times when we are stuck in a place of sadness. When we are grieving something that we don't know and don't understand why we're grieving, so that we can have compassion for ourselves when we fall into shadow patterns. And by shadow patterns, I mean ways that we walk, and by shadow patterns, I mean behaviors and ways of being that we take from an unconscious part of us that aren't necessarily super good for us. For example, for me, I remember, and hopefully no one will find out that I'm telling everybody on the internet this, I remember a whole bunch of years ago, one of my very good friends announced that she was going to get married to her partner, who she'd only been with a couple of months. And I felt so much rage and anger and jealousy. And jealousy was the main thing, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be with someone who I felt like I could have a future with. And there was a big part of me that didn't feel that safety and security in my relationship. So that all came out as furious, never quite telling her, oh, what are they doing? They're making a mistake. Oh no, oh no, oh no. It's like 8 years later, they're still together. It's fine. But for the Shadow Priestess, our role is to hold that part of us that is having that big emotional reaction and allow it and hold space for it and have that love and compassion for those parts of us that find life difficult and hard, because it is. Everyone wants to sell us things, and I'm sure I am guilty of this too, because I love the dream of things being easy, and I 100% believe that very often we, and by we I mean me, and by sometimes I mean constantly, make things so much harder for ourselves and more complicated than they need to be. But genuinely, life is tricky. Life is hard. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be having such a tricky time of it. So our job as priestess is to really hold space for ourselves in those moments, to allow ourselves to have those shadow moments, and to priestess ourselves through them, to work with ritual and ceremony to honor and understand, to go in that meditation and self-inquiry so we can gently hold the part of ourselves that is grieving something, that is in fear, that is freaking the hell out about something, and hold it and love it long enough so that then we can slowly peer a bit deeper and see what the root is. That's what we do as priestess. It's not just about doing nice hand fasting ceremonies and full moon rituals and goddess gatherings where everyone holds a rose and puts it in the center of the circle. It's about learning to really hold that space for yourself and your own shadow on the journey, because a spiritual journey is a journey of shadow. If you're on a spiritual journey, which is a journey where you're looking within, there's going to be all kinds of beasties in there, because that's the whole point of a spiritual journey. It's not just a beautiful rise up to hang out with Jesus and the elves or whoever he's hanging out with right now. It is tricky, and we need to have that shadow, love and compassion, and we need to learn a way to deal with that stuff. And it is so important that we have a system to be able to work with our shadow, to be able to recognize it and hold it in compassion. And it's so important to have a space to do this where other people can also look at your shadows and those sadnesses and those unconscious patterns and look at them and go, oh, hey, hi, it's nice to see you, rather than go, and tell you to just work harder and smile more. It's very important. So that's what Sister Year is about, in part. It's about learning those skills of priestessing for ourselves, understanding, dancing with the shadow, and holding it in compassion, and having other people hold those difficult places in compassion for you as well. Life isn't actually meant to be easy, unfortunately. Wouldn't that be lovely? Life is tricky. And we know this as priestesses, and that's why we do this work, because we want to find a way to honor and actually move through transitions in life. Being a priestess is all about priestessing transitions from one state of being to another, from one part of life to another, from something being full to something being empty. That's when the priestess comes in. And that's in our personal life and in our outside life and in all bits. So that's what I really wanted to talk to you about today. If you would love to learn more about this path of the priestess, about this shadow work and integration, I would love to invite you to get my free guide, which is called Morgan le Fay Priestess Activation. Morgan le Fay is my girl. She's a shadow and underworld goddess who is a priestess midwife, and she really holds the blueprint for walking into this kind of path with love, compassion, smarts, and ability to stand with that darkness and difficulty and grief and sorrow that we all go through and that everyone in our lives goes through. And if you would love to get that, I'll pop it in the link below. And you can also go to rockstarpriestess.com and download that beautiful guide called Morgan le Fay Priestess Activation. And if you want to train as a priestess of Morgan le Fay with me, you're more than welcome to join my mystery school and my sister year. Sending you so much love.